and download. Hey everybody, welcome to Narativ Live. We are here on a Friday. You can sense there's a happy mood everywhere in the media because I'll tell you why in a second, but let's welcome the gang. It's so good to have everyone back here. Hi LB, it's been a while.
It's been a minute.
How are you doing?
Back.
It's great to have you back.
I'm doing really well.
Great.
Thank you.
Eric Garland looks so different. I don't know where you are, Eric, but that's a very different setting.
Undisclosed location.
It's that secret. It's very pink. Is that pink? It looks pink. It's the color of the...
It's salmon.
It's salmon. Salmon's a much better color than pink.
And it's harm to ongoing matter.
And Greg Oliari's here. Hi, Greg. Great column today. Wow, that was really good. I like that.
Thank you.
He's in trouble, Mr. DeJoy, I think.
I think so. I think he's. I think people know that he's a threat, and they're gonna come get him. I think a lot of people are gunning for him.
Now, we have a fun show today because we're going to play 270 to Win, which is a game about winning the presidency. And we haven't quite figured out how we're going to play it, but we will by the time we get there. And we're going to start off first by going around the whip here and seeing what everyone's biggest story of the week was. And Eric, because you're in salmon, you get to go first today. What do you got for us?
I've got I believe it's Judge Walton has released some of the redactions from the Mueller report from back in 2019. They've taken some of them out, and along with the questions of, excuse me, why were these redacted from this report to begin with? And my initial analysis that I'm doing as we speak is that Bill Barr covered up for the seriousness of Russian intelligence's attack, doing everything from obscuring Yevgeny Prigozhin's dual role as running the, quote, Internet Research Agency information warfare ops, as well as Wagner, which is something that's known in public, but he made sure Bob Mueller couldn't talk about it in front of Congress.
So Wagner's interesting. So Bill Barr covering up is not new, but it's new because it's about Mueller specifically.
My initial analysis is that there's so much that was covered up by redactions that the only reason you can imagine for redacting it, and it uses the reasoning, there's an ongoing matter, there's an ongoing criminal case, and this would reveal our sources. But when the sources could be Google, or they were in past congressional hearings already, and then you take them out of just that Mueller report document that the world was waiting for, it looks like Bill Barr was trying to keep Robert Mueller from even talking about what you and I could find on Google about Russian intelligence's attack on democracy.
I mean, he is unhinged lately, so maybe this is why. Maybe he's realizing that his time is slowly running out because, boy, he's been acting a little crazy. That speech the other day was insane.
You got Donald Trump looks like he's on Quaaludes for once instead of snorting Adderall, and Bill Barr's just slumped back in his chair. He's like, "These meddling kids! Why won't the prosecutors do what I say?" So yeah, he's not on his game. LB, that was a setup for you.
Well, I mean, he's a minister of propaganda, right? So this is what he's done. If you look at what he really did with what Eric is putting out there, is he used his power of redaction. And no doubt, I'm sorry, Rod Rosenstein was right at his side. There's no way Barr could have read that and absorbed it and known what to do. I think he got in there. Mr. Propaganda, I've been calling him that since his Senate confirmation hearing. It's like he bathes himself in this shit. He's just plugged his dead dick into Fox News, and so he can get his, domination thrill. What happens to you guys with your testosterone?
Hey, come on. No need to generalize like that. What's going on? Come on.
What you mean?
That's really sexist.
Do it.
I don't know about that. It's not necessary.
There's a domination thing, I think, with these guys, though, that tune into this stuff and they get a rush or something out of it. It's very specific. It really is. And he's one of those creatures, in addition to being a shutdown king and a cover-up guy and all the other stuff that he is. And God knows what his real philosophy or theology is with Opus Dei, it's hard for me to see his path in there and separate that from Robert Hansen, because the families are so enmeshed in one another.
Legit question.
But
He's $40 million in his bank account, right? He's worth that much at least.
Robert Hansen, point that out for everyone.
Why is he so rich and doing all this? I mean, it's not like he needs to. Like, there's absolutely no imperative.
I think this is we're beyond fellow traveler here.
Okay.
And
He's baked.
into the territory of that's what I'm getting at. Is this something? I think he's this chimera of both, of somebody who really truly believes all the stuff that he's saying, who has this patriarchy perspective on the world, who has has domination issues, and who and wants to imbue that into the presidency, who missed his glory days in the attorney general. I mean, you could just see this guy was sitting around, right? Holding court for years, and people stopped listening to him. And Donald Trump was his opportunity to get back in there in that glory and that power and be Mr. Attorney General of law of the world. And there's a sickness in there with this.
Although wasn't he hired by the Israeli ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to Israel, in Israel on a trip? That's when he was first introduced to the Trumps as a potential defense counsel.
David Friedman,
David Friedman.
David Friedman from Kasowitz.
Oh, really? That guy, yes.
And
in Jerusalem, that's where you go to get hired to be an AG, apparently.
Yes, and David Friedman, the bankruptcy king who was behind Lehman and Enron, and it's a very interesting little group here.
Does this thing we're looking at in the middle of the screen here? I have no idea what it is, but you sent it in before the show. What is that that we're looking at?
This is just This is an example of a redaction that Bill Barr took out of the Mueller report to protect sources and methods. So here we've got, in 2014, employees within the Internet Research Agency's management began to create and share internal IRA documents, described as a manual, outlining the goal and strategies of its U.S. operations. Document entitled Waging Information Warfare Against the United States presented the IRA's operations as a counterbalance against UN foreign policy and as information war by targeting U.S. and other foreign audiences through online media. In another internal document, U.S. operations described as targeting the U.S. audience with demotivator content that would undermine confidence in the U.S. government and political system.
Seems to have worked.
That was described in the United States intelligence community's testimony of January 9th or 10th, 2017, before Trump was elected. Barack Obama ordered on December 9th, 2016, a complete review based on the CIA, NSA, FBI's intelligence about what Russia had done in 2016. And on about this exact same moment that BuzzFeed published part of the Steele dossier and tried to conflate, the dossier is the intelligence community. They obscured the real testimony, which was from General Jim Clapper, from James Comey, Admiral Rogers from the NSA, and John Brennan, director of the CIA. They gave the real analysis, which is Russia attacked us and will continue to. And there's another redaction in here of December 2016 activities by the Internet Research Agency to get American citizens to pose with, I think it's, hello boss or hello brother Eugene. Well, the name for Eugene in Russian is Yevgeny, and Yevgeny Prigozhin, it was the head of the Internet Research Agency, the quote chef. Except that nickname pisses me off because he is not a fucking cook. He is an intelligence operative or officer of some sort. And he works paramilitary. He works,
he has
propaganda.
A lot of offshore accounts, Eric. I remember that. Yeah, he's Mr. Offshore, right?
Yeah, he's not making brunch. He's not doing hollandaise sauce for.
He was at some point, though. He was pizza chef at one point. But now
yes, and I used to make Kentucky Fried Chicken, but that's not why I'm here.
And now he says that
catering thing. They always have a catering business. It's not that different.
And concrete,
propaganda,
and
catering, same thing.
And a trucking business. I got it.
Yeah,
but one of the redactions from Bill Barr is that Prigozhin is tied to the Russian Ministry of Defense. Well, he runs a paramilitary operation. You think he might have talked to a general or two? No kidding. Why was that? I mean, we know that he was running Wagner, the irregular troops of the Russian
Prigozhin
military.
was?
Yes.
The same guys that took
And
over for Eric Prince's guys in Libya, because Wagner was sent in after Lancaster 6 failed in their mission to overthrow the legitimate government. So interesting.
There we go.
Well, in this path, right?
Yeah,
This is what.
Wow.
Eric, why Barr do the redactions? Why do you think that Barr redacted the things that he did? Clearly, there was no reason to in terms of national security. So,
well, he gives a reason. He says harm to ongoing criminal matter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
But this is the thing. This comes
Who's
out
the president's criminal matter?
Yeah, well, ongoing criminal activity. Did you mean harm to ongoing matter, criminal investigation? No, just harm to ongoing criminal stuff. That would be uncharacteristically honest for him.
It's actually a very good paragraph that you can grab onto and tell a story with. Look at what Eric just did with that one paragraph.
Mm.
And so the reason to redact that is so that, not that anyone but everyone here read the Mueller report. I'm still convinced there's only 14 of us who have read it.
All 14 of us were deeply affected.
But if you're gonna grab something, that paragraph really tells a narrative. It really spells something out very clearly that folks that aren't that informed or couldn't quite get this, what this whole thing was, this attack, can come out with that language. Oh shit, they attacked us, and do away with that word meddling and talk about it for what it was.
Why don't we just use the word attack? I mean, I really don't understand all these words, all these euphemisms. I mean, it's an attack. It's a blatant attack on us. It's no different. I'm going to move on to the second story. Which
it's not us. Just I can continue. Yeah. It's not us saying it. I think what's so important about that paragraph is it's Russia said it was declaring war on the United States. So when the GOP backs up Russia, calls their activities a hoax, Donald Trump says, wouldn't it be great to have a great relationship with Russia? Russia themselves said they were at war with the United States. So if you're backing up people at war with us, that makes you a traitor. That's what Bill Barr took out.
Exactly.
Wait, if we're at war, it's treason, right?
Yeah.
Because doesn't every little nitpicker on Twitter from time immemorial want to remind us that it isn't treason if there's no war going on, right?
That's right.
So if there's a war, can we call it treason now? Please?
I think they said it was a war in a court document. I think they probably in a court document they said they were doing an act of war, so there must have been war if it was an act of war. No other reason to.
Wow, I'd hate to be on the bad guy's side on this one.
Yeah, so speaking of war, I'm going to make a segue to our good friend Greg Smith, who was here earlier this week. I got to say, this was an incredibly interesting hour or so that we spent with him, Eric. I thought he's a really brave dude.
Hell yeah.
He's a really brave dude. I mean, I can't believe that for someone like him to come out and say what he's saying takes such an enormous amount of courage. And he was so frank and so incredibly sincere about his intentions and what he thought about Eric Prince. I was really blown away. I want to play a clip of that, but I wanted to get your thoughts first on some of that, Eric, and then I have one clip that we ran in the show, but I made the audio sound better, so it may have been something we had missed along the way.
What do I think about it? I mean, I think we could have continued it for another 58 straight hours. I had questions on everything, and I think Greg is a great patriot who was involved in something that was a dangerous business, and when it became a treasonous business, he was out, and now he's telling people.
And I think that's the greatest thing about him is there's a point where he talks about the story where he actually says, I'm quitting, I'm resigning because Eric, you're breaking the law and I want nothing to do with it. I'm going to tell the State Department you're breaking the law. And if you don't like that, and they apparently, him and the Chinese overlords there did not like it. And he decided to quit, which is what you'd expect for someone who's actually got a moral backbone, unlike Eric Prince, who clearly does not. So that's the story I actually want to play. Let's take a listen to Greg Smith describing how Eric Prince broke the law, still has broken the law, and still has not faced consequences for breaking that law, and then why he decided to leave Frontier Services Group.
So I said, Eric, this is complete bullshit. You weaponized his aircraft, you did it behind my back. And,
you didn't know at all that they were doing it, at all?
Well, no, because I thought they were at his factory being outfitted with ISR equipment.
Oh, wow. That's shocking.
I start getting pictures. This was him in Surge again, a guy named Sean Matthews. I start getting pictures of, these light attack aircraft. I'm like, well, those can't be ours because we don't have light attack aircraft. And this Israeli guy that was working on the Project Aconvulsive, he goes, Greg, those are your aircraft. As a matter of fact, Eric has offered to sell me not just 2 of them, but 8 of them. Well, so I confronted Eric. I took it to the board of directors. Admiral Fallon and I were both incensed. We're like, what the fuck? So eventually we had a board meeting in March 2016. So for 2 days, I went hammer and tongs through probably 300 pages of documents that our legal counsel had produced, reports they'd produced. And I said, Eric, I believe we've probably violated U.S. laws. Mm-hmm. We, the company, and you as an individual violated U.S. laws. And I'm going to the Department of State and I'm reporting it. Eric lost his mind.
What year was this, by the way?
What's that?
What year was this?
This was 2016.
Okay.
Quantity fired. That wasn't going to happen. It's just too weird of a situation. But I was ready to resign because I just couldn't live within a company that did that. So I'm ready to resign this board meeting. We'd already had 2 days of this. So for 15 hours in 30 minutes, Eric and I had been going at each other in a board meeting. Admiral Fallon was looking at us and, we're like, oh, shit. And then at the end of this board meeting, our Chinese benefactors from CITIC, Chinese Communist Party members, stand up. And they say, well, this is all nice, Greg. You and Eric, thank you for all the work you've done, but we have something we'd like to announce. So Lao Ning stands up. He's our CITIC board member, Chinese Communist Party member. And he says, going forward, Frontier Services Group is going to be CITIC. It's going to be Eric Prince. It's going to provide security work. It's going to provide security work for Belt Road. So I'm literally sitting right next to former Secretary Commander Admiral Fallon, and I look at him, and I look at Lao Ning and Johnson Cody, 2 vice chairman. Eric's sitting next to me, and I simply say, well, then I'm fucking resigning right now. And Admiral Fallon looks at me and goes, resigning with Greg. And that was how I left Frontier Services Group. So I said, Eric,
So that's a really interesting thing because firstly, we did not know. I believe we didn't know the Frontier Services Group actually does all the security for Belt and Road, which is this giant project that the Chinese are involved in, which is designed to really knock America off of the pedestal of being, number one in the world. And guess who's doing it? Eric Prince. Mr. Eric Prince is cashing in. Mr. Donald Trump's Eric Prince is cashing in on Belt and Road, doing Frontier Services Group. And
that was the Chinese Communist Party directly.
Yeah. I mean, CITIC is, you look at CITIC, it's basically the key funder for everything that goes on with the Chinese Communist Party. So Eric Prince, this guy that runs Frontier Services Group, Chang Zhenming, he is the chairman. He's basically Eric Prince's partner and boss in Frontier Services Group. So anytime you hear Donald Trump saying that he's anti-China, or that he thinks China's just, treating America badly, or any of those kinds of things, he's completely lying, because Eric Prince, he's one of his big insiders, is operating on behalf of the Beijing government and on behalf of Xi and Mr. Zhang over there. So that was interesting. And then the earlier part is really interesting because it seemed that Eric Prince illegally weaponized a crop duster plane and turned it into a fighting vehicle of planes. And he was never, ever prosecuted for that. But he is being investigated for that. And I'm wondering where the FBI is in that investigation, because it should still be continuing, or he should be charged. The man is in hiding right now because he's got a bunch of legal issues going on. So he's in Nairobi, so not that much in hiding. But we don't know where when he'll return to the United States, and whether the United Nations will also talk to him about what he did, or his people did in Libya, which is basically try to overthrow the government. So lots of news on that show. And I just a big thank you to Greg for coming on Narativ and exposing all that news. Everyone who hasn't seen that interview, go take another look at it, because it's really, really fascinating. Anyone else want to talk about that? I'm happy to open the floor.
I agree that it was fascinating. I just so people aren't confused, the Greg and Eric that we're doing, it was not me and Eric Garland. Just to make sure. We're talking about Eric Prince, and not Eric Garland. The salmon background is not somewhere in Nairobi. Just to make sure everyone's clear on that.
I'm in an undisclosed location in northern Quebec where I'm also converting crop dusters to light attack infantry support aircraft.
It's just a coincidence. The name is spelled differently, so of course one's with a C, one's with a K. I get that wrong sometimes.
And the United Nations can smooch my poop for the.
I think one of the things. I hope you guys continue to follow up with him and bring a lot of clarity to the operations of this world. People truly don't understand how this part of the underworld works and how legitimate a lot of this business is. It's dangerous business, as you said, and a lot of it really is just logistics. I know we keep using that term, but it's getting something from point A to point B, or helping build something in a region that is either war torn or in the middle of some kind of other conflict where it's very difficult but you want to be in there in a macro economic way of helping really start industry. And equipment needs to get in for that. People need to get in for that. You're moving human beings and supplies and equipment. That is very different than the other side of Eric Prince in his world. So Greg Smith is in one end of it, right? The other side is we're private mercenary force for anybody who can pay us. If an individual, a corrupt regime, we'll come in there. You want us to be a hit squad? Sure, we'll topple a democratically elected,
government in Libya, and no problem. $80 million is all it costs, by the way. If you want to do that, if you have $80 million.
Right. So you can work for a warlord. You can work for a businessman, oligarch. You could work for a competing government. So that's a very different business, and it gets confusing because the manpower often overlaps, right? Because you want people, if you're going in and moving goods and supplies, you want security forces who know how to protect your logistics, and that's your manpower, and people who have relationships in the regions and who can get things going for you. Sometimes that overlaps with folks with a very specific skill set being trained in either Australia or in the United Kingdom or here in America as a soldier, turning them into a soldier of fortune for mercenary Eric Prince.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good to keep getting in there and really teaching people about the different mechanics of the world. And
guys, I'm monitoring the news thing, and I hate to break it up here, but oh fuck me. It looks like it's true. Ruth Bader Ginsburg died.
Oh no. Whoa.
Yeah, well, per NPR.
Let's double check. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm just going to pull up some news sources here just to see.
I've been. That's why I've been quiet for the last few minutes. I'm reading the comments down below.
I mean, and it's going to complicate things dramatically heading into this election. But still, I don't think he's got enough, power there. But let's just celebrate a woman's life who's incredible. I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was just a beacon for humanity in every way. I think that you can't separate the evolution of women's rights in this country from this woman. She was the single-handedly helped women come to equality in America, and what a remarkable person, a remarkable presence, and who's always had such a way of handling people with power that didn't mean she had to be exactly like them. She was just able to, in an understated way, make people understand how powerful she was and how she needed to be listened to. She didn't need to imitate or stop being a woman in order to be powerful. And just a sad loss. But what an incredible life! What an incredible life that she's been able to achieve so much. And she's been sick for a while, and I think she's been in pain for a while. So as much as this is a complicated political situation, it's undoubtedly also just a moment to celebrate and commemorate someone's incredible life.
Let's do her proud.
Yeah. It should be a motivator for everyone to, not that we need much more motivation to vote this year, but it seems like, the show is actually called A New Hope. And that's why I had that slide up, because there is, good polling out there that seems to suggest that Biden is so far ahead that that there's absolutely, that there is a moment here where we can be a little bit confident that those polls might be an accurate reflection of what's really going on in the swing states. Now, this might change things, to be honest. There's a lot of people who vote.
Shit, remember last week? He must have known about this, because last week remember, kind of out of the blue, he circulated that list.
Right.
Listen.
Right, he did.
Here's I think this is a very good time for everybody to really listen to the words of the greats, the historical greats of peaceful protest, and learn why you must be peaceful. If they're going to jam somebody through before this election or during the transition, Mitch McConnell will do it. He will do it.
Yeah.
And it will upset everyone on a level that our reaction must be massive numbers and all of it peaceful. All of it peaceful. There's no greater force in the world than a peaceful demonstration. No greater force in the world than that. No army can topple that. No Bill Barr, Eric Prince merging of their horseshit, which has been going on as well. And it's about time we start covering that as well and just be brave and talk about what's really been going on with those two individuals. There's a reason why we cover them the way we do. But everybody needs to study that. We need to really study why we must be peaceful and show our numbers in incontrovertible numbers.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, it's certainly...
That's the thing to do. Look, they're going to try to ram somebody through, and I'm sure that everybody watching this is freaking out, because I think we're all sort of inwardly freaking out. If we can get back the Senate and the House, we can do a lot of things. We can put 11 there, and LB, Kavanaugh is not long for that court. Kavanaugh perjured himself. We're going to get rid of that motherfucker.
We really are. There's a lot that's going on. There's a lot that the people here on this screen and our folks that we're associated with and people that we know about, that we just know what they're doing. I just want you to know everyone out there, there are a lot of people working really diligently, very, very hard, putting everything they have. We have given up our lives, some of us for 4 years now. And there's a whole new big force of people who are doing it this last few months and are going to keep doing it.
Yes.
This is it. We are all in on saving this nation from these criminals.
We've got a statement from John Roberts, which I can go ahead, Eric. I'll read it right afterwards. Go ahead.
4 years ago, when this happened and surprised everyone in the intelligence community and surprised the world, I knew that this nation was in trouble, and I know that this fight was going to go all the way to the end. And our fight collectively, right here, has been to wake people up to that. Yeah. And they may wake up in the most cold shower of ways, but this has always been a fight for this republic. And now the battle is joined.
Yeah, we must be peaceful. I mean, I know we can all envision the dance that Mitch McConnell is doing right now. That horrible, wretched man. That wretched human being. And the way to stop him is to show our numbers and peaceful.
Well, I mean, the call for people to go out and demonstrate, it's complicated because we know how the protests have been so, they've been so weaponized by the people who are, the provocateurs or instigators or whatever that show up at these protests. and turn whatever might be a peaceful protest into one that isn't peaceful. And that's what worries me about protests. And we have to get to the point where they take the step by step and see what they say. Like they're gonna try to do this. Probably they are gonna try to put another.
They've already said they're going to do it. If she passes away, Mitch McConnell has said point blank, yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Not without hesitation.
Well, they.
How did she die? Do we have any details on like?
They just decided on treason a long time ago.
She died in her home in Washington, surrounded by family. So it sounds like it was just the complications of the cancer that she had, which I think was pancreatic cancer. John Roberts, which is a terrible cancer. Excuse me. John Roberts said, "Our nation has lost a justice of historic stature. We at the Supreme Court have lost a cherished colleague. Today we mourn, but with confidence that future generations will remember Ruth Bader Ginsburg as we knew her, a tired and resolute champion of justice." So it's Justice John Roberts, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. She, in the 1970s, she was a real. She changed things. She changed everything about women's rights in the 1970s. It was, I haven't spent enough time studying this in detail, but what I do know is that I don't feel like the strides that women's rights made in the 1970s and onwards were largely due to her diligence around that. And it's just so sad to see someone with such a resolute attention to these kinds of things pass, because we don't have that many champions around anymore inside the system, and it's going to be really sad not to have Ruth Bader Ginsburg there to balance out this court. And the prospect of a conservative leaning court is just is horrible. It's just too much for many of us to bear, because we've all fought so hard for every liberal stride we've gotten. Everything that we've gotten in the last 100 years in terms of rights, whether it's gay rights or women's rights or race rights, those things have all come because of there's been balance and because there's been liberal people on that court and democratic people on that court. And if that isn't there anymore, all bets are off. And if democracy isn't functioning the way we expect it will function, then it becomes even more difficult for us to find a way to get that change. So one can only hope that the Republican Party gets, at least, and I know it's too much to hope that they're going to be in any way sober and calm and do the right thing at this point.
This is what they've wanted.
Yeah.
They've been celebrating this. Celebrating this. She's going to die. We're going to get this. That's why they stick with him.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I want to bring up.
There is a sickness in this nation with masculinity, and I know you reacted to that, Sam, but it is true. They're coming for our rights, yes, and the progress, yes, but they're coming for my body and my daughter's body. They're coming for our bodies. They're not even being subtle about it.
If there's any news story that should give us hope, it's about.
Yeah, try to imagine, because these are three beautiful men here that I spend time with, everybody. I cannot tell you how great these men are and how much time we're on the phone together and how supportive you are of me. And maybe I'm just vulnerable right now because I'm going through some health stuff that is about being a woman. But, I need you guys to get these other men out of our bodies. I don't know that you can imagine what that's like, to be told you don't have a right to your body, to your own body. That's what they're going to come for first. It's time we talk about it. You gotta stop failing us. You gotta stop.
Who's failing you?
This whole fucking country is failing women. the strides that we make, we have to fight for them. Ruth Bader Ginsburg just passed. She was a warrior for us, kind of alone. You know, against what? Against what? Against the men who were and women who joined with them, keeping us from having equal pay, equal rights, right to our own bodies. Can you imagine what that's like?
No, can't. I can't do some of that.
No, it's time to start imagining it. It's time to start. Imagine it. Imagine it being you, your reproductive rights.
You know, this is the 100th year anniversary. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, that's okay. It's just the equal pay thing. Really, is just it's outrageous.
This
You're
is the
not gonna
100-year
get
anniversary of suffrage.
save money.
Good point.
Women have only been able to vote in this country for 100 years, which is insane to me, right? And for all the movements that are going on now with Black Lives Matter and putting the emphasis and making people look at the history of institutionalized racism in this country, the institutionalized sexism and misogyny in this country is older and more deeply seated. It's bad, and it's so baked into not just American culture but world culture that it's harder to even separate it and look at it in a realistic way. And I think one of the things that we need to do and that we can do is to
the president. I mean, it's insane.
Right. No, they took that away. They fucking stole it. You know, the Russians and Trump and all these criminals stole that, and that was something that was supposed to happen and did not happen. And we're going to have a
powerful leader, beacon on the hill, beacon for who? You know, we've got all these other democracies. They can put women in there.
There was a woman in Pakistan in charge, for Christ, in Pakistan, and not here.
We got it. There's a lot to heal, but we can't do that. You know, you can't do it if you don't have accountability. You know, I'm sorry. We gotta hold people accountable. You can't just say, "Oh, you're forgiven. You're forgiven."
Well, no one is saying that. The question is, you know, what do we do now? I mean, we're going to have a process where they are going to try jamming somebody, and
I wasn't held accountable.
And maybe we just, maybe we just continue to soldier on into the election and hope that that's actually, so big a win that it becomes so convincing a win, and that the Republicans are actually okay with getting rid of Trump, and we'll take the RBG replacement maybe as some sort of solace.
They are not okay. I'm sorry, they're not going to be okay with it. That's hopeful, and I love that you said something hopeful. They're not.
Well, I'm trying to find a way through this. I mean,
I think the way through it is to just, we're in the fight for our lives now. We were in the fight for our lives before. We've been in the fight for our lives for 4 years. But we're in trouble.
But let's say they do choose somebody before the elections. I mean, if it doesn't turn out to be a thing that happens after the election, then there's really no reason to keep on to Donald Trump. That's the last thing that maybe he was useful for was potentially another conservative justice. So if they can, if Democrats, whether they like it or not, just have to give in and say, okay, fine, we'll put in whoever you put in now and deal with it afterwards.
No more of that.
Not going to be a Supreme Court justice. No, I'm sorry. I don't want men that are okay with experimenting on women's bodies.
I'm not saying we have to live with the decision after the fact.
No.
I'm saying we agree with it. Don't agree with it. We let it happen because it's going to happen. And then we elect our president, and then we deal with whatever Kavanaugh allegedly did and whoever they put in. Because really, if you've got an illegal president, which I think he really is, installed in an act of war, I think there's a lot of after the fact argument that could be made about why these, every decision he's made really doesn't qualify.
I agree with you. And I think this is where we're at. Though I agree with you that they're going to do all that. I agree that we might have to wait. And that's why I'm saying I could see a big convulsive reaction to this.
Mm-hmm.
Because, such a painful spot for people because of what they did with Kavanaugh. If we had two Gorsuches, yes, it would be wretched, but because of what the Kavanaugh thing really was, which was about inflicting a lot of pain, it was traumatizing people, and it's what an abuser does, right? And people's had open wounds, and they went into this emotional part of their brain where they couldn't think straight. And couldn't see. And here's Greg and I going, follow the money, you guys. He's lying. It's the money. And nobody could even hear that at the time. Nobody could even process it because people were just flailing, right? And so I could see that same just huge outburst of pain and emotion to this, what's coming for us. And all I'm saying is, please, we got to study. We got to just be this voice of, like, it has to be peaceful. This is where Michelle Obama and Barack Obama are 100% right. You have to go really high. You have to go really high because you can't engage them in their abuse.
It could be a real rallying cry. Go ahead.
Can I be optimistic for a minute?
Yeah.
Because I think we're going to need that. There's a couple of things to consider. One of the other things that was bad about Kavanaugh is that Kavanaugh is bought and owned by, we don't know, but somebody, right? And that's why it's going to be relatively easy to remove him when we retake control of the Senate. And maybe we, the reporting, we reveal what we know and he steps down. I don't think Kavanaugh is going to be on the Supreme Court for the next 30 years. I think we're going to be able to 86 that motherfucker. Okay, so that's A. Yeah. Okay.
And by the way,
historically,
not because these are vicious. I don't want what we're saying right now to get used as propaganda by the right to go, look, the liberals are plotting to blah, blah. No, he's a criminal.
He's a criminal. That's it.
His criminality is committed crimes. We can get him on his crimes.
Now, historically, and certainly until fairly recently, when presidents picked Supreme Court justices, they tried to get people that hewed to their views politically. And often it was not the case when they actually went to the Supreme Court. Even Gorsuch, in the brief time that he's been there, has been sort of surprised. He's not predictable. I mean, in some ways he is. And the longer that they stay, the more liberal they tend to get. Historically, I'm talking about in the 20th century, right? Harvey Blackmun, what was it, Harry Black, put there by Nixon. So they can't, they're going to try to put somebody bad. They're not going to put Ted Cruz, those guys are not going to make it. I mean, politically, they have to pick a woman, I would think. I mean, come on. They have to.
They do not have to do anything.
No,
they don't have to.
I know. They're desperate. They're all desperate. They're going to the most ugly place, all of them, because the next stop is prison, and they know it.
Right, but if they want the person to actually survive there, okay? So all I'm saying is the historical record suggests that if it's a person that is actually qualified for the job and not a owned criminal or whatever Kavanaugh is, it really is kind of an unknown. You don't know what you're going to get necessarily. You might think you know, but you don't necessarily know. That's point 2. Point 3 is and people are writing this on the screen now that I'm reading. There is nothing in the Constitution that says we only have to have 9. We can have 11. We can have 10. And that's
a good
it.
Point.
And they can be like, well, we're going to put this guy on and be like, oh yeah, here's 2 more. And also here's DC. And here's Puerto Rico. And now we have 4 more senators. Go fuck yourself forever.
Actually, there was also a real good proposal by Pete Buttigieg during the election campaign for a very different way of appointing Supreme Court justices. So there's we're in an era of extreme change in this country. There's no doubt. But this could be one of the things that we need to correct. This is one of the things that if we can win the Senate and we can win the House and we do get the presidency, there is enormous opportunity for generational change, especially if you're going to have someone like Kamala Harris, who may be in the executive branch for 12 years. She can exact some real change. She can really do a lot with 12 years of legislative and radical change in this country. I really think that could happen. And so, this is a moment of it seems dire and sad and also incredibly difficult. But there is, at these times, there's always the rebound. It's always just at the darkest moments that you have that rebound, when things feel like they can't get any worse, that you get the opposite reaction happening. And I think we have to think our way through this that way.
We have to think through. We have to think this way.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what we also have to be, because denial is not your friend.
Mm-hmm.
Denial is not your friend either. This is incredibly motivating.
Yes.
For Republican voters.
Mm-hmm.
They were starting to get really depressed. This will motivate them. If it is something like, we'll wait till the election, or we'll wait for the transition, or we'll wait, this is something Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell can also use to motivate those voters to come out. Because if it's Donald Trump, then we know that we're going to get a conservative judge, and that the Dems and the liberals aren't going to be able to do anything about it. So you've got to vote this guy back in, so that we can because we now have a chance to really secure the judiciary for the rest of all your lives, and we'll do away with Roe versus Wade. I am telling you, this is incredibly motivating for them. And so we need to be just as motivated and keep showing up. Today was a very inspiring day before this horror, with the first day of voting, and look at what happened in Virginia. I mean, it was around the
Virginia,
block.
yes.
Yeah, that was on my list of news stories.
Look, there's so much that can happen, and I've seen the world change. And when I grew up in South Africa, it didn't seem like it was ever going to end. Apartheid was never going to end. It was just the way it was going to be. It was just going to get worse and worse and worse. There's going to be more violence, more security forces, more deceit, and then just took the action of one man to decide to find a peaceful way out of this. And he literally, just on his own, without even the ANC supporting him, Nelson Mandela, on his own, decided to end apartheid. Went and started the peace process. People at the ANC were really opposed to it. They really thought it was a bad idea. They thought he was giving in, that he was, just turning on them. And in reality, he walked out of that prison, and he was able to find a way out of this and turned around history. I mean, we do not feel the fear that you felt growing up in South Africa, the constant police state fear that you had, which is similar, I suspect, to the kind of fear you're talking about, LB, is that lifted because of Nelson Mandela. He walked out of that jail, and it took some years, and he walked out of that fear. Now, other things happened that are tough in South Africa. There's a lot of crime. There's a lot of bad things that have happened. But that fear of that system, of that police state grip that happened, I grew up in, that was lifted. And things can radically change very, very quickly if the people want it. And I suspect that there is so much motivation behind Democrats going into November 3rd that you could not be any more motivated than there is now, but there'll be even more motivation now. I mean, I still remember this day, the lineup of people waiting to cast their votes on it was April 27th, 1994. That they were able to, the lineup was incredible because there were so many people came to vote. And I suspect that's what's going to happen on November 3rd. We're going to have that kind of turnout everywhere across this country. And it's going to be difficult because we're going to have coronavirus and a bunch of other things. But there was something very healing that happened, because for the first time in South Africa, we had black and white people voting together, and black people voting at all. And it was an incredible moment of camaraderie. It actually healed the nation. The act of voting together, and the act of being democratic, and the act of moving out of one phase into another phase is remarkably healing. And I suspect that for this country, that day is going to feel the same way, because we're all going to the same polling booths, and we're all going to be casting our votes together, and we're going to be, taking part in this democratic act that we have decided that is important in our system to allow for peaceful change. And we can have that peaceful change. I mean, it's what we do. It's what we've done every single time there's been an election. And there's no reason why we can't have that peaceful change now, because it is a system we love. It's a system that's worked. It's a system that's unique. And it's a system that's allowed us to be free and free of violence and free of a lot of other things, and generally progress in so many ways that there's no reason why that's not going to happen on November 3rd. We just have to march into that day with so much conviction and make sure that everyone shows up. And I think that there's a lot of healing that will come in that day, because that's how we resolve conflicts. That's how Americans resolve our conflicts. That's how we resolve our differences. That's what we decided to do. So, I just feel more hopeful than you do, but I don't feel like I just don't feel like this is just another thing we have to deal with. It's really sad because she was incredible. She was an incredible beacon for everyone. But we need more people like her, and we need more young women like her, and we need women to have greater control and more power in our world, and that's already happening.
So let us in.
Sorry,
we're not sitting on the side. So let us in.
Yeah,
we're trying to get in. We're striving for all of that. We need your support. We need you guys to back us up. We need to. Maybe you don't make as much money because all of a sudden we're making the same amount of money. You think they're going to pay us more or you less? So
it doesn't matter. It should be the same regardless.
You got to back us. You got to have our backs. Let us in. Let us into leadership. Everybody go vote. Everybody find out. Check your registration. I am going to put. We're going to have to go because it's Rosh Hashanah. And
one quick thing. I mean, isn't it? It seems so. There seems to be some meaning in the fact that we found out about this at here in the East Coast at sundown on Rosh Hashanah.
Right.
There seems to be some. There's a lot of metaphysical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna put on my Twitter homepage. I just haven't done it yet, but I'm gonna go do it right now. I'm gonna put a link that we have. All of us have a link it's tracked, so it helps us know how you guys are responding to our calls for you to help Joe and Kamala. I promise you, the money goes. You can see it's there. It goes right into the campaign. They're going to need it for a legal fight. There's going to be the fight of our lives all the way through this election and for weeks afterwards. And that's where that money goes. And we are asking, usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we do a big push to ask for money for Joe and Kamala. Just $5, just $10. I'm going to put that link on my homepage. I want you to go to it. And when we are pushing for that, we're pushing that because of this. For this, we need you to help us. And they need our support. They're really good people. Biden and Harris are really good people, and they can lead us forward, and they need your support.
I want to say one other thing, that I think women in this country have decided that Donald Trump is not good for them. And in 2016, that was not the case. In 2016, they voted for him. They allowed him in, and it's because for some reason many of them were duped by him. And so they voted for him. They're not voting for him again this time. All the polling shows that they're not going to vote for him. And when you look at RBG as a motivator for women to go and vote, for the same reason that you're talking about, I think you could actually see even more women turning out and voting for Democrats, even in the most Republican of areas in our country. I really do. I think, and you got Kamala as a woman who's going to potentially become the first female vice president to hold that office in this country's history. Those are very motivating factors for women, and as there'll be a lot of discussion in the next few weeks about women's rights, I think, and that's going to make it even more important that more women show up. And when you look at how to turn those swing states, it's the women's vote, and it's the left-leaning males that you can turn, and these kinds of issues can speak to them. I really do. I really think there's opportunity to try and push more of this agenda through as we head into the elections. I hope there is.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have to go. But Eric, do you want to say anything? Any other last thoughts from you, or then Greg? No? All right. Well, that was not the show we expected, but great discussion. And
not at all.
Well, we just have
I'm glad I had the ticker on.
Yeah, me too.
We wouldn't have even known.
And, just we sort of leave you with our thoughts about RBG, that she's just a remarkable, remarkable beacon of justice. And without her, women would not be where they are today, but America would not be where it is today. And we'll continue to fight the fight here, and we know you will too. Thanks very much for joining us on Narativ Live, and we'll be back Tuesday, and we'll see you then. Have a good night, everybody.
Support Narrative's independent journalism at patreon.com/narrative and check out our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe and download.